What is up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the first episode in our coverage of the Mordheim Early Access Exit Release. So this is the 1.0 version of the game. Launch. The game came out. It's got a single player campaign now, and so I figured I'd play through that for a little bit. I'm not a big fan of PvP or anything like that. I've spent about 12 hours with the game now, kind of learning the mechanics. It's very, very similar in many ways, you know, to other hardcore strategy games like XCOM, in that you are going to lose soldiers. People are definitely going to die. There's going to be frustrating dice rolls and things like that. There's a lot of RNG in this game, but at the same time, I'm starting to get a hang of it. Just know that this is probably not going to be the most skilled playthrough. I'm probably going to be dead by like episode 10, which brings me to my next point. We've got to create ourselves a warband. If you've never heard of Mordheim, essentially all that it is, there's a city called Mordheim in the Warhammer fantasy setting. It gets hit by a meteor that's made out of warpstone or something along those lines. It's a tabletop game that you can play. And so anyways, a city gets hit by a giant meteorite made out of warpstone, and so everybody goes over there to harvest the warpstone, which is used for magic and drugs and all kinds of other fun stuff. And so you pick a faction, you make a warband, and you try and run them for as long as possible. So if you took like Blood Bowl and you took the football aspect out of it, and then you just made it purely about combat and picking up as much wordstone or as much, I still call it warpstone, as much warpstone as you can, that would be pretty much, like, it's pretty much similar. So anyways, all of the regular kind of obnoxious things that can happen in Blood Bowl can also happen here. We gotta choose a faction though, and since they didn't include the manliest faction, i.e. the orcs, cause me boys is ready to go, they didn't bring me orcs, and so unfortunately, since Games Workshop never shows any love to the orcs, we have to pick one of these inferior races. And so I put a vote up on the Twitter. You should definitely go follow the Twitter if you want to be a part of those votes, because that's where I'm always going to put them up. The winners were, so the four factions, let's start out that way. We've got human mercenaries, which are very, very versatile. Essentially, they've just got like a medium amount of everything, and that's actually a good thing in this game, because a lot of the teams are hyper-specialized, and it can cause serious issues for you if you make a tactical blunder. We've got the Skaven. They move really, really far. They have super high initiative, which means they always act first in combat, but their attack power is not amazing until later on in the game. They tend to have very, very low HP pools. They tend to even that out by bringing more. They're kind of a swarm army, I guess. They got like a Tyrannid Zerg type thing going on. We've got, they hate everybody in their lore. I mean, they're generally just really an unpleasant race. They bring Grimdark to a whole new level. We've got the Sisters of Sigmar, which is actually kind of a weird faction. I'm not entirely sure why they put them in Mordheim, because nobody really plays the Sisters of Sigmar in the Warhammer Fantasy setting. They could have filled that in with a more popular army, I would think. And anyways, I assume it's because they're probably one of the main tabletop choices or something like that. But the Sisters of Sigmar are the exact same thing as the War Priests of Sigmar. They're just the female version, so they're kind of like the nuns with guns from Warhammer 40k. Pretty much the exact same thing. They specialize on really, really heavy defense. Each of their characters has a really high point cost, and they're really, really like strong. But they can't field quite as many units. They tend to move very, very slowly. They don't get around well, and so if you want to be kind of defensive and paladin-like, I guess the Sisters of Sigmar are probably a good choice. They got a lot of magic and stuff too. And then the Cult of the Possessed, which is Chaos. A lot of people like Chaos. Chaos is kind of an odd army in this game, in that they focus a lot on magic and being mobile, but at the same time, they can really kind of throw down and duke it out in a fight if they want to. They're a weird army, and I really haven't learned how to play them properly yet. And so anyways, when the voting came down, it was between the two evil armies and the two good armies, and people chose the Reichland Mercenaries, and they chose Chaos. And so Skaven versus Chaos, they went with Chaos, and then Sisters of Sigmar versus the Mercenaries, they went with the Mercenaries. I've got about 12 hours play with the Mercenaries, so I'm going to go with them since they're the one I'm the most experienced with. But don't worry, don't be upset, because frankly, I'm going to die like early on anyways, and we're going to have to make a new warband. So when we do that, we'll do Chaos, and I think everybody will be happy. If this ends up being like a real crowd pleaser and people really, really like watching me play Mordheim, I guess we can play all the armies one by one. But right now, I only have any real playtime with Mercenaries. It's kind of like when you play Blood Bowl, you really don't want to play an army that you don't understand because you're just going to get whooped on. I'm starting to understand the human Mercenaries, and so it seems like it would be a real blunder for me to play anybody else. So I'm going to go with them first. During the weekend, I'm recording this on a Friday. The next couple episodes are all going to be recorded on a Friday. During the weekend, I'm going to jump in and make a new warband with Chaos and Skaven and kind of get a feel for them, just so we have other options. But Mordheim was really popular when it came out in early access on my channel, so I figured we'd go back for the full release and try it out. So we're going to be the Reichland Mercenaries.
So, you've decided to brave the City of the Damned in search of gold and glory. There's no shortage of those who've tried before you. If you look hard enough, you'll find their bones littering the ruins. Mordheim doesn't forgive mistakes, so you'd better not make any. I'll say this for you. You've taken the first step to surviving. you've had the good sense to seek out Luther Wolfenbaum. I've forgotten more about this city than you'll ever learn. Listen to me, and you just might leave this place with the fame and fortune you're after. I'm not sure what oaths and vows bind you to Baron von Leitdorfer's service. I'm not really interested in the imperial pretensions of Reichland's Grand Prince either. You need to concentrate on one thing only, and that's the task immediately before you. Aye, there's Wordstone in the ruins, ready for the taking. But there's other things in the ruins too. You've got those murdering maniacs from the Rock, ready to kill anyone they find with even the smallest shard on them. They're bad, but even worse are the degenerates who've taken to worshipping the comet that smashed Mordheim. They're twisted in both mind and body, and will happily dump your body into the pit as an offering to their Shadow Lord. You'll even see things you wouldn't believe prowling the ruins. The verminous underfold, the Skaven of legend, are quite real, I assure you. They'll steal your Wordstone and gnaw your bones, given half the chance. Aye, the dangers are great, but if you were cowardly, you'd never have made the journey here. There's treasure to be had, if you're bold and ruthless enough to claim it. This city chews up the timid and the weak, so remember that, and keep your men strong. Do that, and you might just survive.
Yeah, in general in Warhammer Fantasy, you do the best you can not to leave cities ever. Traveling is a really, really bad idea in Warhammer Fantasy. Like, you basically just want to huddle inside your city and hope that the magistrate protects you, because not a lot of hope out there to be had. Alright, and so essentially it's going to be popping up with all these tutorials and whatnot. I've played the game enough at this point to understand roughly how it's going to work. We probably aren't going to live long. My highest level warband was like level 3 or 4, and that was like 12 hours into the game, and then I got wiped out by a bad event that I got, and so unfortunately, be aware that at any moment in this game you might get a bad dice roll that kind of just ends your career, and that's actually, you know, it doesn't end your career, but it's definitely unpleasant, and that's part of the tabletop game too, from what I understand. I've never played it before. So the first thing we need to do, this is our war camp. All this stuff is going to be locked until we get a little bit further in. You bypass things by days. The date is up here, so it's Marktag, the 2nd of Fluggezeit, 2000, I guess. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to hire some soldiers, because we really are just not set up for combat right now with one soldier. And so we can have a leader, we can have a hero, and 3 henchmen. As we level up and our warband gets stronger, we'll be able to add more henchmen, we'll be able to add an extra hero, you'll be able to get like extra retinues and backup heroes and stuff like that. We start with 225 gold crowns to get our city started with, or I'm sorry, to get our warband started with. We want to spend that as carefully as possible. Now the point of the game is to pick up warpstone and send it to your boss. And so our boss can be accessed through the smuggler's den. Technically you're not supposed to have warpstone because kind of bad for humans. It's good. It actually does good things to Skaven and evil races. It's good for them, but it's bad for us, except that it gives us like ridiculous magical powers and stuff too. So for whatever reason, the Baron von Leitdorfer is our patron and he wants it. And every single week or month, you've got to send him a certain amount of warpstone. Otherwise, he gets all grumpy and it's game over. It's kind of like how in XCOM you got to keep the UN happy or whatever. Exact same thing. If everybody pulls out, you lose. And so obviously there will be no pulling out here. We are going full impregnation mode. Okay, so we gotta hire a hero. The hero option that we have is actually really, really limited right now. There's so many stats in this game. I can't explain them all to you. That's not inside the breadth of this video. Even on a tutorial series, going through all of this and just telling you what everything does, and then going through all the random abilities you can buy and all that sort of thing would take hours. Like, seriously, this is a game that's tough to get into. It took me at least like 3 to 4 hours before I even remotely knew what I was doing, and then I made a new warband and started off. It's got a learning curve. Even with the tutorials, there is a learning curve here. We can only get Youngbloods. The good news is that Youngbloods are not terrible. They're pretty good. He comes with a halberd, too, which is a pretty solid weapon. The thing you want to pay most attention to is this right here, your hero's rating. The hero's rating is the culmination or the addition of all of his gear rating and all of his skills and all of his level ups. And the higher that number is, the better. You want that number to be huge. And so that's just keep an eye. You got health. I think this is his crit chance. I think this is his damage ratio. This is his damage absorption, I think, when he gets hit. Strength determines, well, just things that strength damage you deal, and then how good you are at breaking parries. Toughness, I think, gives you more HP, and some other little things, raises your resist. Agility makes you better at dodging, which is actually far more useful than it sounds. I tend to focus really heavily on dodging, just because avoiding all damage is typically far superior to soaking damage. Leadership, It's how quickly you run away when things go wrong. Intelligence is how good you are at magic. Alertness is how good you are at roguey things like finding traps. Weapon skill, self-explanatory, your chance to hit, how much damage you deal. Ballistic skill, exact same thing for bows. And then accuracy actually has more to do with crit than it has to do with hit rate, so that's going to deceive a lot of people. Your main stat you want to put things into is weapon skill if you're melee and ballistic skill if you are ranged. Accuracy, I tend to ignore it just because it's too crit focused. It adds more randomness to the game than I like having. Movement, that's how far you can move. Initiative, this is all pretty self-explanatory down here. Resistances, stuff like that. I figured I'd give you a crash course though, just so you knew what we were looking at. When they level up, you get to increase all these different various statistics, and they do get marginally better, I guess. We're going to hire our first Youngblood, and so there it is. We hired Otto Fieglerman. So now that we've hired the Finger Man, I think we'll go ahead and hire some other people. There's a lot of customization to be done here. Like, seriously, you can change their facial styles, their beards, their clothing, their weapons. There is seriously no limit to the amount of random stuff you can fiddle with in this game. You can spend an hour just making your guys look cool before you even start fighting. I don't do that because that makes me get attached to them. I treat all of these guys like Christmas pigs in that, like, I don't name them, I don't look at them or make eye contact because they're probably just going to die anyways. Once they get to level 2 or 3, then I start naming them and giving them cool gear and making them look nicer. But for right now, I think, you know, a bowman, I'm not a big fan of the ranged characters in this game. At least not the human ranged characters. They're okay. They're situationally useful. But for right now, I might just take a bunch of melees. And so I'm going to try that out this time around. The bow guys are alright, but it takes them so long. It's kind of like leveling a sniper in XCOM. They're so good once you get them leveled, but they're just such a giant drain on your resources in the beginning of the game, and they don't do anything. They're not super helpful. Sometimes you can camp them in a good spot, and they'll occasionally make like a good critical hit, but it's just like, just iffy. So iffy by comparison to just bringing melees and cudgeling everything to death, which is what I think I'm going to do for right now. Once we increase our slots, I might take an extra bowman, maybe. I know people are going to complain about this decision too, but it really just comes down to your preference. Bringing another bowman significantly weakens your battle force if you don't have like a battle plan for him. So I think I'm going to start with 3 warriors up front. So we've got, who do we have here? We have Velton Elshon. We've got Gunnar Lundorf. We've got Meinholf Schwarzane. So anyways, at this point we've got ourselves Velton John. I'm going to call him Velton John from now on. We've got Gunnar Lundorf. And we've got Meinholf Schwarzane. And so we got the Finger Man. We got Elton John. What's this guy's name? Leonhard von Falkenberg. That is the dopest name ever. If your name is Leonhard von Falkenberg, you know that you just kick ass on principle. He probably makes eye contact with people that just get knocked out by proximity. Holy shit, that's a badass name right there. I'll probably customize these guys a little bit just so they don't look all the same, so I can like discern them apart. There's going to be a couple different hairstyles we can go with. I'll probably make this guy, there we go. We'll give him like some Michael Bolton hair. Or like some, that's not who I wanted. Who am I thinking? Michael McDonald. There we go. Give him Michael McDonald hair. And then we'll go in on his hairstyle. With his beard, we'll make it match on up. I'll probably make him, yeah, we'll give him the Custer. There we go. The colors don't necessarily match up based on, like, Style 3 is different for different facial styles. I would actually like to see them go through and unify that so that Style 1 is, like, always brown on every single thing. Style 2 is always blonde on every single thing. We can change his little shoulder belt. You can change the way his armor looks. You can do all kinds of cool stuff in here. Wouldn't recommend it, though. You're just going to get attached to him, and then he's going to die right afterwards, and you're going to be like, nah, and you're going to be all upset about it. I just become detached when I play this game. I just don't care. These guys are grist for the mill of me making money, and that's pretty much where I leave it. What other hairstyles do we have? So obviously you can't have that hairstyle. We'll give him the beard, and then we'll give him... yeah, we'll give him a ponytail or something. I'm going to leave them dual wielding because dual wielding is weirdly good in this game. Every time I start deviating from the plan and I stop using dual wielding, bad things happen. You can give him shields in his offhand just to increase his parry chance and things like that, but I would mostly recommend just focusing on dodge, to be fair. Having like a 60% dodge ratio is incredible in this game, and it's not going to hurt you. So let's go back over here. They're all looking fairly lined up. This guy's got his pirate pants on. He's looking a bit like a youth pirate. He's going to run at me like, "Yar, me hearties," and stab him with a halberd. Let's go do a mission, shall we? On day 1, you get a freebie mission, and I would highly recommend you take it. So we've got a normal difficulty mission, and what you're looking for here is you want a mission These might be a little bit too difficult. The game scales difficulty, but it does not generate missions based on how good your characters are. And so what I mean to say right there is that sometimes your first 3 missions will all be like hard or very hard. And what you do when that happens is you send out scouts with this right here. I want to have a normal mission, and so, oh, the second scout's going to cost more money. Alright, we might have to muscle our way through this then. What it says right there with average and poor. So the little crystal, that's how much warpstone is out here. Wordstone, whatever you want to call it. And then the one on the right, the poor, that's how much treasure you get for winning. Let's see, both warbands divide into 3 strike teams and disperse. Both warbands are scattered randomly around the area. That sucks, I don't want to do that one. One warband is caught exploring buildings while the other divides into 3 strike teams surrounding the buildings. Ooh. I'm gonna go with this one then. And so you get to choose who you want to bring. You can have people in reserve just in case people get wounded, so you can bring them into the next battle. Anytime you take damage in combat, you've got a chance afterwards of being wounded or maimed, which takes you out of combat for a couple of days while you heal on up. And it shows up on the character too, like if they get an eye poked out in combat, their eye will be gone. Stuff like that. If they lose an arm, they'll have like a stump. That's why I tend to build people towards dodge too, is because if you lose an arm or something and you've built towards parry, it's like, well, shit. I'll go launch and deploy and let's see how this thing goes. The load times in this game...
Warband is fragmented into small patrols, possibly to try and slip past your own warband and escape with some wordstone. Aware of these patrols, you quickly dispatch your own forces in small groups to intercept them and prevent any enemies from leaving the area without a fight.
Okay, sorry about that. The load times in this game are stupidly long. They're like 3.5, 4 minutes for me anyways. The load times are hella long in this game. So, the things we want to watch out for here, we have objectives. And so we've got to actually deploy our characters. I don't even know who we're fighting against right now. It looks like we're fighting against the Sisters of Sigmar. No, we're fighting against Mercenary Band. This might get ugly then. We're up against mercenaries. Still, we want to fight to our advantage. And so what I'd recommend is when you first start, you should take a look around, because there's no map or anything in this game. And it's nice to get a feel. What's up in that window right there? Either way, it's nice to get a feel for where you're at, and also to look for warpstone. So it looks like this group starts facing our other group. Okay. Well, let's defend the wagon first. I'm going to put my strong guys next to the wagon. The game auto-balances, so if you bring 4 guys, the enemy will have 4 guys. If you bring 6 guys, the enemy will have 6 guys. So don't worry about that. The battles can be as big or as small as you want them to be as you get further into the game. I'm going to deploy him. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to deploy him. Meow. Auto Feeler Man, so my hero. I'm going to have the other hero be over here in the second group. Put Lundorf here. We'll put Elton John over here. We'll put Schwarzhain with him, and then they're going to try and regroup with these guys right here as fast as they can. That's all that I'm focusing on. So Leonhard von Falkenberg gets his turn. So you see that little blue ring around me? You see the little pips at the bottom of the screen that are blue? There should be, I guess, 7 of them. Every time I cross a blue barrier like this, right there, we lose a movement point. And so just keep in mind, that's how it works. What we want to look around for is wordstone, and normally it's in the street. So we'll have a look around here. You can basically scout as much as you want, so don't worry about that. We can run around and essentially do whatever we feel like with our first couple turns. And I tend to use my big characters as scouts and just kind of run around and get a feel for the battlefield. The game is supposed to feel very claustrophobic. It's supposed to be very confusing, and it's going to be difficult to get your bearings a lot of the time. But if you stick it out, it's usually not so bad. So we stepped on a booby trap. There's booby traps around. And so what that does is it finalizes the points that we've already used. So you see how there's 3 points right there that I used to get over here? Once you step on a trap, it becomes permanent. I will more than likely... Oh, I don't know. I tend to spend a lot of time looking around and getting like the best move I can, so you'll just have to bear with me here. I'll probably set him up inside this building in ambush stance. And so there's a lot of things you can do. You can do delay your turn. You can do perception, which makes you look around for traps. You can do parry stance, which makes you have a baseline 44% chance to parry every time the enemy attacks until you fail. You can do dodge stance, is the exact same thing. I'm going to go with ambush stance, which makes it so that when he sees an enemy, he charges out of this door and he attacks him. And so there it is. The enemy's going to take their turn. Obviously, they're moving their big bag die. We're kind of at the mercy of how the enemy decided to deploy here. And so he got a charge off right there on Gunnar Lundorf. Unfortunately, he's their hero too. So now we got to confirm whether or not we want to counterattack on this one. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And so there's the counterattack. If we can get rid of Siegfried von Drack, this will probably go well for us. But as you can see, your guys don't have a lot of HP. They go down very, very quickly. So watch out, you know. Sorry about that. Game crashed. So anyways, now we're on this guy. And what you want to look for if you're trying to navigate, if I wanted to regroup these cats, we need to find there's a big blue beacon in the sky. You can see it right there, sort of. If we're trying to get these guys to regroup, we got to make our way over here. Ooh, there's a bunch of wordstone right there. Jesus, that's a lot of wordstone. We might go after that. And then just keep working our way in that direction. I'm going to put him in... He doesn't have enough strategic points left to do anything other than ambush stance. So you know what? Let's just go... Oh, their cart is over there? Okay, so this might be a bad plan. If their cart is over there, you see that red beacon? That's where their cart deploys with their army. And so you got to be careful about this shiz. That's a terrible move right there, and I shouldn't have done it, but it'll have to do for now. It's weird that he didn't rush out to stop that. It's because the other guy used charge is what it is. Charge cancels out the ambush stance. So this guy, stuck in combat's got an 81% chance to attack. If you wanted to get out of combat, you can use a flee, which makes him run as far as he can. However, it gets him out of combat, but he suffers a free attack of opportunity. Likewise, you can go with disengage, which is kind of like a little crow hoppy type thing that gets him out of combat very, very quickly, and you don't get the bonus attack. But chances are you're not going to have enough action points, which are the red pips left, to really get anything done. Instead, I'm just going to attack right here, and I'm going to hope for a hit. And if we get it, there you go, we got the hit, so... It is what it is. I'm going to put him in dodge stance. Your characters are largely disposable and hard to keep alive until later on in the game, so don't get super upset if you lose them. It happens. Believe me when I say it happens. Didn't get him. I was hoping we'd get him out of combat, but unfortunately didn't go down like that, so we're probably going to lose this chap over here. The plus side is that they're about to lose one of their heroes, and so... I'll trade like a generic mercenary for a hero any day. It's kind of like trading up. You want to make sure that you do it properly. Is there any way to get over there? There's treasure inside some of the houses sometimes, and it can help out some. I will probably leave him back over here. You can't stop inside their deployment. That little ring right there, you can't stop inside of it. So anyways, it's from the old tabletop model rules. You just got to... watch out for it a little bit. The enemy's going to move their archer, and I really hope he isn't around here anywhere. The enemy should be scattered into small warbands, so they shouldn't be able to get like a big Zerg going anywhere. The AI loves to Zerg mob.
Has started.
Like, no joke. The AI in this game is really, really Zergy. And so anyways, if you ever let them mass up and just like ball up on you, it's trouble. This guy right here, so we got a 77% chance to take him out of commish. I'm going to go for it. Down he goes. And that's a really, really good thing because our leader got the kill right there. Now, what you want to notice at this point is you're probably wondering how this all works. Like, how does the game end? If you look up at the top left-hand corner, you see a blue bar and you'll see a red bar. That's the morale. You'll also see a little line that goes across it with an arrow. When it falls below that threshold, the enemy's got to make a test. Otherwise, they flee the field and we automatically win. Now, this makes the game very, very fast-paced sometimes, and it can be very, very difficult to get the things done that you want to get done before combat ends. However, make sure you loot their bodies too for extra money and valuables and things like that. You never know. I will more than likely plant him right here in ambush stance. That might be a trap right there, but you never know. I still haven't exactly figured out how you rotate in between people. Like, I assume that you can change viewpoints, like, while you're in combat. I need to get some of this wordstone, so I think I'm going to do something ill-advised, and I'm just going to make a fat rush for this wordstone. Now, we can go around the long way, or we can try and jump that wall right there. I think it's probably wisest just to hustle through here. I'm going to take up a defensive position right there in case anybody comes around the corner. I don't think anybody will, but... Elton John, you want to check this house for me, make sure there's no treasure in here? Elton John! Anything? Moving vertically is kind of magical in this game, by the way. because it doesn't count you as going through a circle as long as you, like, stay in the same room. It gets odd. It gets very, very odd. Trust me when I say you can do some weird things with the movement in this game. I would prefer to actually collapse everybody towards the enemy beacon, but I don't know exactly where it is. So until I can see it, there it is over there. And so as long as we head to the west, we should be alright. So let's head to the west. I'm going to put him on ambush stance right here. He might get into trouble because he's a little bit isolated, and the other guy that he's running with is wounded. But if we can make this work, I think we've got a pretty solid we stepped in foul mist. What did that do? You can press the Alt key to look at the debuffs that are applied to you and the ones that you'll apply on yourself. So for example, dual wield means that he does minus 25% melee damage. However, it adds the damage of his weapons together, so he actually tends to hit a little bit harder than somebody with a one-hander. Tiring means that every time he does an extra attack, it costs an extra offensive point, which are the little red pips. And then foul mist is what we just stepped in, which makes it so that we have less poison resistance. That would suck if we were fighting against Skaven, but we aren't, and so life is good. I'll probably have him set up an ambush right here, just in case. I'm hoping they don't get run up on by enemies. I will be upset if they do. This guy over here, it's going to be in our best interest to keep him as defended as possible because we don't want him to die. If he gets killed in combat, he doesn't die permanently, but there's a chance that he might. And I don't want to lose any soldiers this early on. I prefer to keep everybody leveling up and generally just being in good shape, getting their cardio on every single time we play. So I'm going to put him in, I think, an ambush stance, maybe. Oof. I don't know where a good spot for this is. I don't know, maybe something like this to watch the backside. I moved him out a little bit further than I wanted to, but we might be okay. And then we'll just collapse on whoever makes it into combat first. We only got to kill one more guy, and then they've got to make a morale check. And the morale check, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, spoiler, spoiler. The morale check is sketchy. It does not go your way very often. They've still got a hero on the field, so be aware of that. But everybody else they have is like archers, which are basically freebie kills this early in the game. Sort of interested. We haven't seen any archers yet. Seen a lot of other things, but no archers, and so we'll have to keep an eye out for our Robin Hood wannabe friends. Well, they're not really friends, but you get what I mean. You get what I mean. Oh, good. I like new rounds, new cylinders, new squares, new cubes. Doesn't really matter to me. Hopefully, there's still a bunch of enemies left, so one of my big concerns here is that they're going to mass up and zerg on us. And once they've massed up, that's bad. You don't want to deal with the zerg. The zerg can be troublesome. I think we're actually meeting up with them right there. There's a bunch of wordstone. If I could jump up this fence right here, that'd be great. Can I jump up right here? 72% chance to make it. Yeah, go for it. And there it is. He climbed up okay. This game is a dice roller's heaven, by the way. Gift of Savagery. That's good, actually. So Gift of Savagery is going to make it so that we do 15% extra melee damage. Couldn't have asked for anything better. You know, I'll probably just put him... I'll put him in ambush stance, I guess, and I'll try and get somebody to cover his backside right here. I don't know exactly where the enemy's at, but I figure we'll find him eventually. We're just about out of time for the day, though, so I'm sorry the first episode... With games like this in Blood Bowl, there's a lot of organizational stuff you got to do at the beginning that kind of gets in the way of playing the game. And so anyways, I'll try and do a lot of the organization off camera if I can manage it. Let's get some of this wordstone, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Hi-do, everybody. Oh yeah, you can't save scum in this game either. There's no saving, and it actually saves every single turn, so we gotta live with our decisions. There's no way for me to edit this at all. See you next time, everybody.